Well, I came to Howard Community College in 1982, and that was 36 years ago, and there was very little in the way of arts programming here, and the facilities were even worse. there was not one space that was designed and built for instruction of the arts. Any arts teaching that went on in spaces that were converted. For instance, the acting, we only had like one acting class in the theater area, and it took place on stage, so that of the Smith Theater. So that if there was an event happening in the Smith Theater, the acting class had to go elsewhere. So sometimes outside, if there was not room. So there was not a dedicated space for acting. I came when Dwight Burrell was president. He was very much in favor of supporting the arts and having the arts grow. So he gave me a lot of support to develop the facilities and develop the faculty and so forth. So we are today, with a beautiful Visual and Performing Arts Center in the Horowitz Center, and we have thriving arts programming as well as state-of-the-art facilities. When I first came to the college, we had a performing arts series where primarily we brought performing arts into the college. We'd actually brought in ballet or a touring company of maybe singers or dancers or theater people. Well, and we did one community theater production a year, essentially, when I first came. And as we had no student theater, and we just had this one community theater production a year. So as I started working as a theater faculty, I was first, my first involvement in the theater here was faculty. I wanted to attract really good actors and good directors and designers, and our audiences wanted better and better productions. So I really wanted to tap into this wonderful market in the Baltimore, Washington area, and Howard Community College placed right in between. It was a perfect location to attract all these wonderful professional artists. I wanted a professional theater. So I started getting all kinds of requests from professional actors and directors and designers. They wanted to work with us. Well, union actors cannot work in non-union houses. So as soon as they found out that we were not union, we couldn't have access to these wonderful actors in the region. So I explored what it would take to get the excellent union actors, equity actors, and I found a program called the Guest Artist Program, and I started having in our semi-professional theater, which wasn't called Rep Stage yet, some guest artists, and I'd have guest artist contract with the Actors Association. So that grew, and actually I went to New York 26 years ago in, I guess it was the spring of 1993, to negotiate a contract to see if we could become a full-fledged equity theater. And I went to the Actors Equity Association offices, and I started talking with them about the possibility of creating a resident theater here, equity theater here at Howard Community College. Well, they just looked at me like they were incredulous, and they said, well, there is no community college in the country that has a professional equity theater in residence. And my response was, so we'll be the first. And so we were. We were the first community college in the entire country that had an equity theater, Actors Equity Association theater in residence. But that's kind of the history in the nutshell of Rep Stage. And we have won numerous Helen Hayes Awards, have been nominated. And Helen Hayes Awards are like the Washington area Tonys, like what the Tonys are to Broadway, Helen Hayes Awards are to the professional theaters in the Washington area. So we are very much a respected professional theater in the region. Well, the arts are not only important for the development of the human being, okay, and of students, but actually being a part of the community. And the community really does demand high quality performances, visual arts, exhibitions. So, and we as a comprehensive community college are very much involved with the community, very much involved with the arts community as well as the residents here. And I think you can evaluate and assess a community by how much it values and supports the arts. Well, I've had a long tenure here at Howard Community College, 36 years, and I have loved every minute of it. Honest to God, I just love working here at Howard Community College and being a part of this, not only Columbia, Howard County community, but Howard Community College community. It's very much a family here. And I'd say that when I first came to the college in 1982, everybody knew everybody. You couldn't go down the hall without saying hi or seeing somebody that you knew. We really did know everybody on campus. Today, we're much larger. So I can be at an event, let's say a convocation in the Smith Theater, and look around and say, I bet I don't know 10% of these people. So I think there have been growing pains over the years when you get so big that you don't know everybody. But I have to say, the one thing that I think that has not changed is the concern for students. You know, whether it be faculty, administration, staff, that the students at this institution are the #1 priority. It was that way when I came July of 1982, and it's that way today. And that culture of students first and what's best for the students, I mean, you hear that in all kinds of meetings, in classrooms, you know, and that is something that has not changed. Even though we may not know everybody, you know, I'll be saying hi to people down the hall thinking, what's that person's name, you know, and I'm you know, I might not know them, but I do know that that person, whoever I pass that's working here, they put students first, and I love being at an institution where that happens. Well, I remember one particular county council meeting. The college, back then, we all showed up at the county council meetings. This is when you were asking for money. But everybody that got up to speak, whether it be the president, head of the board of trustees, students, faculty, staff, they were all talking about high tech. We're high tech this, high tech that. And I hadn't signed up, but I got up to speak anyway. And so I told this story that I'm going to tell you now, which is a true story. This actually happened, and I told this to the county council members because I wanted to have them understand that we at Howard Community College are so much more than high tech, and that's all I seem to have been hearing. So I told them a story about when I was teaching acting, or this particular acting class was the previous semester, 2 semesters before. This young man, he looked to be, I think he was about 27, 28 years old, was taking my acting class. It was an evening class. And students do monologues. It was a beginning acting class, and he had never taken an acting class before, never taken any kind of arts class before. And he was kind of shy. So in the acting class, they do, around midterm, they do monologues, you know, one person up talking. So he wanted help in choosing one. So he seemed kind of a serious young man, so I chose a monologue from a play called Dylan. It was the life of Dylan Thomas, not Bob Dylan. And Dylan Thomas, the playwright poet, he was, in his life, diagnosed with a terminal disease. And this particular monologue comes in the play about his life right after the doctor tells him he's sick and he's going to die. So it was a wonderful monologue. I mean, you know, it really goes into Dylan is angry, he tries to bargain, all the grieving things that you go through. Well, this young man was very excited about the monologue. He went and worked on it for weeks and whatnot. And then there comes a period of time in the semester where I work with students one-on-one on their monologue. So I was working with him right in the Smith Theater, and he did his monologue for me. Well, it was fabulous. Fabulous. I remember saying to him, I said, "You've never done this before?" I said, "You should do this. I said, "I can't tell you anything that's going to make this better." I said, "This was wonderful." And he said, "Well, I can identify with it." I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "I'm dying." Well, I was devastated. Even now, my hair on my arm standing up just recounting this story. I said, "What?" And he said he was diagnosed with a terminal illness and he only had a few months to live. And I said, "I am so sorry." Of course, I told him how sorry I was about his health situation, but also sorry that I chose this monologue for him, not knowing that. And he was like, "Oh, no, no." He said, "This was perfect. This is exactly what I wanted." And so once I kind of recovered, I asked him, I said, could I ask you, why would you choose at the end of your life to come to Howard Community College and take an acting class? I mean, there's things you could go to Paris, you could do, all these things you could do with your life. And he said, before I died, I wanted to create something. I wanted to create a piece of art. And he said, I knew I couldn't learn an instrument in the short time I had left, and I didn't think I could learn to paint or this and that. He said, but what I had read about theater and acting, he said, if you can identify with something that you could make it real for yourself, and things that he had learned in my class, that, you could create art. Which is exactly what he did. And I told him, I said, "What?" I said, "That's exactly what you did here. I will never, as long as I live, forget this performance that you gave me. You're the actor, you're on a stage, you're performing for an audience, I'm your audience, you have created art." Well, I told this story, and by the way, he did die a few months later. I stayed in touch with him. He had to actually drop out of the class. His health did not permit him to continue, and he had to move in with his parents. And I stayed in touch with him and his parents. So I told this story to the county council, and I ended with saying, we are not only high tech, we are high touch. We touch our students. We are, that's what's wonderful about the community college. That's not what you get when you're in a lecture with 250 people at a university in a lecture class. We are small classes. We are faculty who care. Staff who care, so we touch people. So I tell this story to the county council, and I was the last one to speak. And they put their hands over the microphones, and they chatted back and forth with one another. And this had never happened before, and apparently never happened since, because normally what they do is say, "Thank you for your testimony, we'll get back to you about the money." Well, after they chatted, they looked at us and said, "You have your money." Well, Dwight Burrell shook my hand so hard it hurt. But that's, that's what the culture of Howard Community College is. We use all the latest tools, all the high tech, but in our hearts, we are high touch.